right? And then you can go ahead and then create your packages and your objects with the same naming convention. I'd be able to follow up with the objects that you have done, all right? So that also works.
Okay, I mean, what I feel is, I don't know if how many of us within the session wants to have a fast-forwarded session, but at the end of the day, I think that it is also onus on students to practice, but at the end of the day, everybody has to take home the learning, right? That is the reason why we are all here.
Yes.
And we probably have to draw a line between being fast and or rather being slow, so that there is a steady pace being maintained.
Mm-hmm.
So I really don't know where others are at this stage. Maybe during the class, maybe we can check and see how others feel, and and I think we could probably take it from there. Personally, for me, I feel like the classes, the pace is on the higher side because it is on a daily basis. We are not getting any breaks. Either we'll have to take breaks in between, or we'll have to in the class we'll have to spend 75% of the time teaching and then 25% for practicing. Maybe that kind of trade-off might.
Okay, we'll ask everybody. I don't think there's a lot of crowd in today, but we will ask everyone once they show up for the sessions. Probably because it's a weekend, there are not a lot of people on the session. We have 3 people who've come in, you, Chandra, and Srinivas. I'm still going ahead with the sessions. We will go ahead and see the topic, and then people who missed out can see the recording. Alright, so if you remember, the last time we were trying to do something on the SAP HANA Studio, we encountered an issue. Chandra, if you have a question, you could speak up. You're unmuted. And Srinivas also, guys, please mute it from your end because I've enabled all of you for to allow you to speak. All right, Chandra and Srinivas, please mute it from your end if you're not speaking anything. Okay, so here we go. We click on the Start button and go to the SAP HANA Studio. The first thing that we need to do is configure our system, so you must be given the password to log into the studio. And once you log into the studio, you have the catalog and you have the content. Okay. The session is being recorded, so don't worry about that. Just give me one quick moment. Akhilesh, what is the IP address that you've been given for the server access? Would you have that handy right now? Akhilesh?
I'm sorry, I've been talking when I'm on mute.
Okay.
So actually, even for me, it didn't work. It was 122.169.246.7 with colon 3322.
3322. Okay. Alright, let me do it on this server. Okay. Quickly tracing back to the steps that we could do in here. I'm going to create a new schema in here. I'll do it quickly. Create schema. Let's say we call this as HANA underscore uh, we click continue. You have a schema created in here. So if I right click on the catalog and refresh it, I'll have HANA underscore training underscore SAPT. So what I'd want to do is I want to load some data from let's say from a file that is there on my system. Okay. So the name of the file here is Mara, and it's stored as a CSV file. So I'd want to go ahead and load it. Okay. So go into the import option, go into local file, browse this, and so there is this one here which says Mara underscore 1 as a comma separated value file, CSV file. So I'd click open that file. The field delimiter is comma, header rows exists. I'm going to load it into this schema called HANA training SAPT. I want to call this as Mara underscore CSV. I click next. This we've seen last time around itself. I'm not pretty much selecting the key fields, and then click next and say finish. So I have that data in here. Okay, now if I right click on this and say refresh, I'd be able to see this table in here. I can right click on this table and say open data preview. This is going to show me the data that I've just loaded. Okay. In a similar fashion, let me also load the text file for Mara, which is MAKT. MAKT underscore one comma. Okay. Schema I'm going to load is into HANA training SAPT. MAKT is the text table for the material master. The material number is there in the Mara table, the text is there in the MAKT table. For customer, you don't have to bother about it because both of them are in the same table, KNA1. So here I'm going to click next. I'm going to select primary keys and then click next and say finish. I could refresh this HANA training SAPT. Then you'd find even the MAKT data in here. So what we're trying to do in here is we're trying to create an attribute view. We've seen a few steps last time around. Go into the content folder. If you don't have a package, right click on it and create a new package. ZHANA underscore training underscore SAPT. Description, a delivery unit. Just attached a delivery unit. A delivery unit basically, whenever you're moving your objects across the landscape, you will want to go ahead and bring them together, just like how you combine multiple transports into one. A similar option that you have here is a delivery unit to bring objects from multiple packages, and then you can move all of them at one shot. You could use a delivery unit. A delivery unit is defined here. You could go and define a delivery unit. So you could assign it a package only once to a delivery unit. So you could assign it here and add the package which you want to go ahead and use. So once I have defined the package in here, which is ZHANA, one moment, right click and then refresh. Did we create it? Oh. So this is the one that we're going to use, and we don't have anything right now. It is blank. Right click on it. Allows you to create a package under it, or you could create an attribute view. So I'm clicking on the attribute view here. I have three different attribute views that I could create: a standard attribute view, a time-derived attribute view, or a derived attribute view. We're going with the standard attribute view. Given a name here, Z, let's say material underscore attribute underscore view. Okay. You need to give the label or the description. The view type is an attribute view. If you choose suddenly to create an analytic view here, you can just change it this way. You can copy it from another view if it is exactly pretty much the same thing. So click on finish. This will take you to a graphical interface. What is subtype is, that's what, so you have a standard, you have a time-derived attribute view, and you have a derived attribute view. The standard attribute view is what we are creating right now. A time-derived attribute view is where we create a time dimension, and then the third one is what we call it as the derived attribute view. If you have an existing attribute view, based on that you can go and derive your attribute view. Okay. So here we are in the data foundation. Wherever you find data foundation, the last step, and you see this, in the last of the data foundation you will always have to push in the tables. Okay, so here it says data foundation and it's just the table, so you can drop elements in here. You can drag it from the objects that we have just created in here, like Mara underscore CS. You can drag this table in here. If not, you could use this plus symbol in here and then add the tables. So let's say you want to add MAKT underscore CSV. So you could add that in here. So there's this schema called HANA underscore training underscore Sep. So from there I want to add. Okay. I could go ahead and open just this view alone. I can double click on it. This will open the entire view just for the view. The thing that we want to do a view is basically trying to link more tables in here, and then this is how we're going to do it. Link. So I think we missed on defining the column names here when we brought in the table. Okay. But this is MANDT and this is the material number. This is brass and this is, just give me one moment. I'll bring this in from another one. MAKT underscore CSV. Alright, so here I'm bringing tables across schemas. I know that they're related, so I'm kind of bringing them. Make sure you remember and understand the direction of how you define the joins. Material number and material number. The moment I create a join, you will see that it's going to create a join type here. It's a referential join that that's by default creating. We want to create it as a text join. Once you define it as a text join, you will have to understand that you will also want to define the language key and the cardinality. The language key here is SPRAS, so make sure you remember and put that in. If not, it will still run through, but it will say at the end when it's processing and when you're activating, it says it's completed with error messages. Okay, so you could go in here and define that. This will apply to both the joins. Now you can choose what fields you want, MANDT, material number. You could choose the material type. So you want to have the material text MAKTX as a part of the view, and you want it next to your material number, so you could bring it in there. And the next step is to go ahead and click on the semantics. The semantics is where you will define the primary key of this table. You can choose the key attribute. That is how you define the primary key. Either you do it from here, or you could go and directly click the key attribute in here. So I have both of these. Now once I go ahead and define the data foundation and the semantics, okay, what I would want to do is I want to go ahead and validate my data. So you can see here it says completed with errors. Okay, so let's just try to understand why. It says insufficient privileges. Okay, it has insufficient privileges, so I need to make sure that this is cleared. The reason why we have insufficient privileges is there is a new schema that is created, and all the authorization, like I told you in the last session, is controlled by one of the system schemas, which is called as underscore sys underscore repo. This is underscore sys underscore bi is the time dimension. Underscore sys underscore bic is where all the views will get stored. Underscore sys underscore repo is where all the authorization objects will be loaded in. The schema that we have is not added to the select authorization and is not added into the underscore sys underscore repo. So what we'll go ahead and do is we'll go ahead and add a SQL to grant us that authorization. So I go into the SQL console, okay, I've sent this to most of our students. So you have this particular thing that you could go and do. Select grant on schema with grant option. So I can copy this. Alright, so here instead of the schema, make sure you put in your schema, which is HANA underscore training underscore SAPT. Okay, so what we're doing is we're going to grant a select on this schema and we're adding it to the underscore sys underscore repo. So once I go and put this in, I'm going to click on, and it says successfully executed. And once that is done, go back into the object that you're working on, which is the attribute view. Double click on it. And now go and validate this. Now it doesn't show the error message. You have authorization now. So in case you are creating a new schema on the access that is given to you, you will usually come up with this authorization issue. Okay, so make sure you add your schema to the underscore sys underscore BIC so that you would be able to activate and use the object. And once I click on the activate button, Akhilesh, go ahead.
Immanuel, regarding the authorization, even in also do will the developers being given access to write SQL query and give permission, or whether this permission will be once we transport this object, it will move with the right authorization?
When we're moving across, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, so usually what happens is when they give you an object, you can go in here and you will find that the roles will be given to you based on what exactly you're going to do. It could be something relating to a code developer where you're handling all modeling, or it could be something relating to just a monitoring. When you're doing modeling, obviously you will have to be given access into the schema that you're going to use, and you will find that in the object privilege. Alright, so they will go ahead and add the object that you are going to use. Okay, and it depends on, so if you are a system schema or the user, so what we have logged in with system, right? So if you go into that particular object, you will find that for the object you have all the object privileges, and you would be able to see that pretty much all the schemas that are created, you will be giving access into that schema. So we have created one which says HANA training underscore SAPT. So this is added into the system and the roles are added in here. Thing is, when you move the object, since this is a system which is the actual or the basic user for logging into the HANA Studio, in a similar fashion, when you are actually a developer, they'll be giving you the access, and the schema that you are going to use will be the access will be given to you. All right. Here, this is a training schema, so you are adding schemas randomly with different names. But on a normal Office system, you will be given a schema, and you will have to create your tables only in that schema. So this part of it will be added by the basis, and then they will move it with the same authorizations into your quality and production environment as long as you're a developer. All right.
Okay. And in terms of adding the packages, earlier you had mentioned delivery unit or something like that. Is that the transport objects here?
Okay. So what happens is, as a part of the creating the initial stage, now you have if you go into BW or ECC, whenever you create an object, you will have to, if you want to transport it, you want to assign it to a package, right? So on similar lines, you create a delivery unit here. So let's say you have a finance project going on. They'd say create a delivery unit for finance, all right, and finance underscore delivery unit. Assign your packages to that. So you'll mention the responsible person, the version, again, all of this for your object. And to this object, you want to add your existing object. So here I can't add two objects at the same time. So click next. So it says that this is already assigned to this particular package. So either I'll have to go and delete it from that package, or I'll have to go ahead and keep adding to that package alone. This is zdel cog underscore bb. So if I go, I would want to go and remove my object from here and add it to the finance delivery unit that I've just created. So I can add my package in here. Finish. I can add multiple packages in here. So when I want to do my transport, all the new objects that I have created in each of these packages can be moved at one shot. Alright, so that is the reason why we have delivery units.
Okay, thank you.
When you create a package, it is not a mandatory step to create a delivery unit, but when you're actually transporting, you will need it. Where are we defining the transport system details? Here, when we are trying to do the export, you can go in here and then define a delivery unit, and then you can move it to another system. Okay, export to a server or export to a client or attach to a transport request. So you could go ahead and do that. We'll come to it when we are talking about imports and exports of models. Getting back, in the content we have defined one of the attribute views, and then now we can right click on it and then you can do a data preview and look at the data that we have used in the view. Remember, there are three different preview steps or preview kinds that you could use. You could look at the raw data of whatever we have loaded just now. So here I have material number. By doing the join, I've got the descriptions as well, the material type and all of these. Distinct values is one way you can look at data, and you have the analysis part, which will basically give you a quick idea of how the report is going to look like. All right. Okay. So what exactly is your question, Chandra? Is this the language that you're asking, original language, or? In the attribute view properties? Alright, the attribute view is more like a dimension. Okay, in the dimension, when we are defining a dimension, we will always go with defining the value part of the dimension and also the text part of it. Okay, that's why you can choose a normal join and when you're defining it with a text object, you're choosing a text join. What I want to bring in from MAKT is my text value of my material number. So I'm defining it as a text join, and what I'm trying to bring here is a language column, and I'm going to bring in the text value of the material number. So I'm defining it as a text join, and so I'm giving it the language column SPRAS. What does SPRAS mean? It is the language key for that particular table. If you go into any of your text tables in SAP, you will find that the language key is SPRAS. So if you go in here, log into ECC, S11, go into MAKT and say display. You can go in here, this is the language key. Okay. Alright, so we'll do a small exercise. We've loaded some data from ECC through SLT onto the system. Okay, so we'll start doing a COPA model. I'll explain you about COPA model a little while from now, but what we're going to look at is we'll create data from the SAP tables. The SAP tables are there on this schema called ECC ON. Okay, so here if you look at the tables, there are a few tables that we've copied in from ECC, and they're here. Okay, so we'll go and see a small scenario. Today we're going to look at the attribute views. In our next session we're going to look at the analytic views. Alright, on Monday we're going to look at the analytic views. So we will create the first step, which is the attribute views. So here we want to create two attribute views. Okay, one is the product attribute view, which is built from two tables, which is MARA and MAKT, which is my description. What I want to bring here is my material number and my material description. Then I want to also bring in something called as a location attribute view. I will be using three tables. This is basically for my customer KNA1. One is T005U and T005T. Okay. These two tables are the description tables for my land one and for my region. Okay. The land one has the two-digit description of the country code. So I want to derive the description of my country codes. I also want to derive the description of my region. So I'm going to use all of this. So what we will be trying to achieve here is, if we go further on, this is basically what we're doing at the attribute view, defining the dimensions. The next step is to create the analytic views. The analytic views is basically a star schema model where you have the fact table in the center and we are linking it to the different dimension table, like the product attribute view and the location attribute view. So here I'd have, when I'm dealing with a scenario like COPA for now, COPA, controlling and profitability analysis. All right, it is one of the functional modules within SAP. Now COPA is it's like a small BW system inside the ECC system, which is in the transaction system. Most of your financial statements are built on top of the COPA scenario. Here you would have, when you create so the most intrinsic part or the basic idea within COPA is to build something called as an operating concern. Okay, just like how you build a model, it is called as an operating concern. It is of basically two types: account based and cost based. Alright, so you could choose to build. Usually this is done by the controlling guy. He sets up based on the flow of how your entire transactions, your the way you're spending and the expenses, the returns that you get, and based on all of that, you are going to build the operating concern. On any ECC system, you can build the operating concern and the COPA scenario, but it varies from industry to industry based on the business flow that you're going to use. And that's how the controlling guy will set it up. Okay, so the operating concern has pretty much the same level as the client within a particular organization. Okay, when you create an operating concern, what you will do is usually you will have to define it as a 4-digit alphanumeric value. Let's say, for example, we have an operating concern called as idea. When you create an operating concern, you will have at least 4 tables that will be defined. Okay, the naming convention of the tables when you create the operating concern will be, if you create idea as the operating concern, the table names will be starting with CE1 and the operating concern name idea. Then you have CE2 and then idea. Then you have CE3 idea, and you have CE4 idea. Alright. The CE1 idea basically is the actuals table that you define, that you bring data from different modules, finance and sales. All of them will bring the final data into the controlling schema. Then you have planned. Alright, in the CE, this is CE2 idea. CE3 is the summarized, and CE4 is the segmented level. So you have 4 tables. What we're going to look at here is CE1 and CE2. We're trying to compare actuals versus planned, and we'll see how we could do that using the calculation view. So in our first step, what we're doing is we're creating dimensions. We're trying to use this model. Then we want to create dimensions. And the dimensions, what we're creating is a product attribute view and a location attribute view. And we're going to use this when we create our analytic view, which we use for actuals. And here the table that we use is CE1 idea. Okay. And we're going to link the product attribute view or the dimensions of product and location into the analytic view. Okay. So as we go along, what we will see is, first let's create the product attribute view and the location attribute view. The tables that we're going to use here are MARA, MAKT for product attribute view, for location attribute view, KNA1 T005U and T005T. So we are in the HANA Studio, and right click, create an attribute view called as the product attribute view. Click on finish. It's pretty straightforward, just like how we did, just that the tables are already there. We're not trying to import any Excel sheets or anything. So go ahead and go into the plus and type in Mara table. There will be a lot of entries. Choose it from the ECC ON schema. So here, click OK. Also add the next one, which is MAKT. This also is there in the ECC ON schema. Click OK. Now here, let's go and define the join, pretty much like how we did the last time around. By default, it's going to show you a referential join. So change that to a text join because you're trying to bring the text value in here. Once you do that, you can add the columns that you want to bring in. Client, material number. Yeah.
In order to compare actuals versus plan, we need to have some quantity, isn't it?
We will choose. So the CE1, CE2 tables basically are like the fact tables. Okay. So you have, so if I go in here within the same HANA Studio, and if I show you that ECC and then let's say CE1 idea table that I've imported. If I open this, this is the actuals value. So here are in COPA you don't have, like in BW, you don't have characteristics and key figures, but you have characteristics and values. Alright. So the values will be, the field names will be VV0, 101, 20, 30 in that format. Basically we have, so if you see this here,
Yeah,
so there is.
We are connecting via flat file, isn't it? But are we going to make an ECC connection too?
I have made the ECC connections, and this data I have brought in through the ECC system using the SLT, but we haven't completed the SLT topic. So I'm just showing you the models so that on one side you can keep practicing the models. On the other side we will again go back and see how extraction is done. I will talk to you about SLT. I'll talk to you about how data services extraction is going to happen as well.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
So here we're going to look at the material number. We want to bring in the material text. Just one moment. Yeah, I brought in the wrong table. Just one moment. Right, bring in MAKT. I brought in IMAKT, I think. Yeah, so MAKT is here, so bring that table in and define the join MANDT. Okay, material text MAKT. I'm going to use it from here. MTRT, MBRSH, MAKTL. Okay. I go into my semantics, then set up my primary key, which is nothing but the key fields. Once I go ahead and do that, I'm going to validate this, and then I'm going to activate this. If I want to look at my data, I can look at my data preview from here itself. I have an option to look at all my data in here. If you don't have a value, you'll find that there's a default question mark. This is going to show up only first 200 rows, but you can see up to 5,000 rows in the data preview. You can change that here to add 5,000. Then you can refresh. So you have the option to see all of that data. Alright. Now let's go ahead and create. So we've created the product attribute view. The next step is to go ahead and create the location attribute view. Right click and say create the location attribute view. Click on finish. So we talked about 3 tables, right? The first one is the KNA1 table. ECCONON. T005 also add T005T. Okay, so you can see all the tables one after the other. I'm going to bring this table here. Then you can open this a little further on by clicking on this stuff here. Now I'm going to define the join MANDT is one major thing. Then here if you see, this is the region description table, okay, and this is the land description table that you have, T005U and T005T. So here what I'm going to link basically is my land 1 to land 1, and B land is for my region. I'm going to link this here so that I can fetch the busy, which is nothing but your description of the region. On similar lines, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the client MANDT. This is the actual table for country code. So here I'm going to link my land 1 to land 1. Alright. Once I go ahead and do that, click on this option so that I'd be able to see the properties window. So here by default it's showing the referential data. I'm going to change that to a text join. Both of these are text tables. In the first one, the column for text is usually SPRAs within the ECC system. So this will set up the join for all the 3, so that is fine. The next step that we have is again change this from referential to text join. So we'll have to choose the fields that we want to use, MANDT. Then you have customer number, land 1. Or next to the customer, we want to have the customer description, country key, and then you want to bring in the land X, which is the description, I want to bring in the region and the description of the region. I want to bring in the city. Okay. So let's say these are the stuff that I want to bring in. I want to mention what are my primary key, foreign key relationships as well. Okay. So if I go into the semantic layer, I can choose that this is my key attribute and this is my key attribute. Alright. So in the data foundation layer, we brought in multiple tables, and here I have the semantic layer. In the data foundation layer, I'm trying to define multiple tables, the KNA1, the T005U, and the T005T table. I'm trying to bring in the description of my region and the description of my land one, which is my country key. For customer number, there is no special customer master, there is no special description table because the description is included in the same table, which is name one. Alright, so I've brought all of that. Now I could go ahead and try to validate if what we have done is correct. It says validation completed successfully. Activation also completed successfully, so we can look at the data preview. Okay. So you have MANDT, KUNNR, name 1, land X, region Z, and ORT0. So you can click on this. This is the output that you're going to get. The client, and then you have customer number, the description of the customer number, then you have land 1. For land 1, the description. Alright, and for region, you have a description. Okay, and then you have your city. So you're basically using multiple tables, and then you're trying to define a view, alright, basically to bring in the values that you need. If you're looking at each of these tables, the first one has somewhere around 170 columns, the second one has some 5 or 6, the third one has some 8 or 9 columns. But you're choosing to bring only what you require, which is my customer number, its description, land one, its description, region, its description, and the city. Alright. So when you're using a text join, you will always be connecting it to a description table to bring in the text values. That's why you're using the text join. If you don't want to use a text join, alright, so let's say you want to connect KNA1 and KNVB table. Alright, so you could go ahead and do that. You can import that table and then you can define the join condition. You could use, whenever you use the text join, the system automatically asks you, because it's a text, it obviously has to understand the description. Because if you look at, let me show you. So if I go in here into tables, and here, let's say there is a T0015U table, open data preview was fine. So you can see that there is a language issue. Okay. So based on how you want to control it, you would go ahead and bring in the description part. Alright. Right, so you can see this here, you're not having all of that values. Alright, so whenever you want to use it, to bring descriptions, only then you will use the text join. If not, you could go ahead and use other joins as well. It is not mandatory that all attributes should have a text value. It is not necessary as such. you can go ahead and define inner join or left outer join or right outer join, and then you can bring in the values that you want. Alright, only when you are linking it with the text table, that is when you will use the text join and define the language key. Okay, any questions?
Immanuel, our idea is to connect this table with the actuals and the plan. Is it?
So when you create an info cube, what we do is we go and define the structure of the info cube, but on the dimension level we bring in the info objects and connect to it, right? So we will bring in customer, material, and other dimensions or other info objects, and we'll add them to the dimension.
Right.
Right? That is how the star schema or extended star schema is built. So on a similar level here, this is like a normal universe that we're trying to build. So here what we have is a fact table. We need a fact table which will basically have the values, the character values, and also the measures or key figures, which are the value fields. So we want to analyze the value fields, but we want to analyze it from different perspectives, and for that we also want to maintain referential integrity. So we want to go ahead and bring in the attribute views and its values into the analytic view. So I will quickly go and create one. Okay, I will. This is just to give you an idea of what we're going to look at. All right. So it is not basically. I'll give you the explanation about it in our next session. So here, once I right-click on my package, apart from the attribute view, I also have the analytic view. So if I click on the analytic view, so the system's going to ask me, so let's say I want to create something called as the actuals underscore a view, which is analytic view. The attributes will be created in blue, the analytics will be created in orange. Alright, so there is no subtype for analytic view. Alright, I click on finish, and you will see in the graphical design that there are just a moment, that you have two layers here. One says data foundation, the other says logical join and data foundation. Okay, what you mean by that is in the data foundation you will actually bring in the tables that you want to use at the fact table level. Okay, you're defining a star schema here. That is what is an analytical view. So I click on this, and let's say here I'm bringing one of the tables from COPA, CE1. Idea is my operating concern. So here if you see CE1 idea, and let's say this is one of the tables that I want to bring. Okay, and here I'm going to choose what fields I want to use from my fact table. Okay, I could say client, PA ledger. You can apply a filter on this. Let's say I want to bring in 02. I'm applying a filter on the entire view. Alright. Record type, I want to bring in only just F types. I want to bring in period. So if you are missing anything and you know the name of the field through a technical specification, let's say I'm looking for sales org, VKORG is the name of this thing. So you can right click here and then say apply. Then you have plan versus actual indicator, PLIKZ. I can bring that in. More than anything, I have to use my customer and my product. Here is my customer number and here is my product number. Apart from that, let's say I want to bring in also a few of my value fields, which are numbers. One is revenue VV010, then VV070 accrued sales deduction, one VV270 is sales overhead, 260 is what? I'll use price variance 290, VV290, and then VV960 is other expenses. So I'm going to use that as my, okay. So it's just loading the field names, and if I want to define the labels, I could go ahead and change the labels also. Okay. So this is what I've defined, or I have chosen from my fact table. I don't need all of them, I just need these. Okay. This will become my data foundation into my logical join. So if I go into my logical join, whatever are the fields that I've brought them as a data foundation, and I've brought them into this. Then I'm going to add my logical joins, which will be something like product underscore attribute view, right? So I have created this. This is our attribute view. I'm going to